Hey, Bing Boy. Hey, Riley Streams, how's it going? Ted's Attic. Jeebus Bread. Rasta Billy Skank. Hugo. This Woe. Puncher Sponge. Just Dallas. Looking for good content? Well, you're in the wrong place, my friend. Plant Lawyer. Parker Wants Death. Skull Friend. Sprite HQ. Plant Lawyer. Eat Keck 27, Bacon Crafted Curtain, Hysterio, Heartsy says, finally something to put me in a good mood. Well, there you go. Hey, I didn't even have to do the chat. It saved it from last time. Thank goodness. That was going to take me an hour to figure out. Yes, I did read the new One Piece chapter. Folks, we're going to get started with the stories at the top of the hour, just about 7 minutes from now. So get your popcorn popped, get your rolling rocks rocking and rolling into your mouth, folks. Woo, it's Monday Sexies. I don't know about that. I don't know if that's how I would define the show. Hey, Aquatic Fry. Hey, Nubcat, Hugo, get your pasta sauced up. You can't have the depression chamber without some spaghetti. Store it in your pockets, folks. It's time to spill it out. Why can't Mumkey read? I'm half blind and half dumb. Scooter speed, whoa! Did you steal a Rolling Rock from AVGN? I mean, I don't know if he owns it. I started drinking this beer because he did it, and I just like it genuinely, and it's the one that when I go to the store that I want to buy, and it's also pretty cheap. It's not one of those, farm to table, crafted, independently owned, small town beers with 12% alcohol content. Hey, Womp Lad, thanks for the sub. About to eat 6 pounds of spaghetti. Hey, well, your name is Spaghetti, so it all worked out. Yeah, I mean, you have to drink beer for the depression chamber, Scooter Speed. What, am I supposed to drink cranberry juice for this show? I don't think so. Oh, what side is my hair all fucking gay on? Uh, oh god, no, get out of my face, you fucker. I can't see in the mirror. Official Minion, thanks for the sub. Welcome aboard, Monkey Nation. I got an egghead today. Yeah, I'm wearing a hat because my hair did not want to obey. So I'm gonna be the guy with the cheap suit jacket and the shitty tiny beanie on too. But it's the depression chamber. If I can't be depressed and ugly, then where else can I be those things? Should I start playing the sad music or is it too early? Here, you guys tell me if we'll do a sound check. Let me know if the music's too loud or too quiet. It should be playing now. Sounds fine. That's a hat? Yeah, that's a hat. See? Music's good? Cool, okay. Finally, I can trust the chat. Usually you fuckers are lying to me. Yesterday, whenever somebody donated, it would play the sound effect twice. And I didn't know if the chat could hear it once or twice, so I asked. Everybody in the chat says, oh, don't worry, we can only hear it once. I fucking upload the VOD to the YouTube channel, and it plays twice every fucking time. You guys are liars. Dirty, dirty, filthy liars in my chat. So probably the music sounds horrible right now. You guys are full of shit. Where can I download the sad music? It's on Asperger Rap's YouTube channel under, I think it's the Leak Week album. This song is called Homesick in the Asperger Leak Week album. If vegans are subhuman, does that mean they are a separate species? That's for the audience to decide. I'm just the creator, you know? The reader response theory suggests that half of the meaning from any given piece of art comes from the audience, so you have to attribute your own thoughts and ideas after the provided text has expired. Tourette syndrome? Yeah, that's about right. How about that ABR return announcement on Twitter? If he, if it's anything like all his other announcements of the past, expect to see a new song in about 6 months. I'm still waiting on the Monkey Cop theme song from 2 years ago. The email, Narwhal, to submit a story is thedepressionchamber@gmail.com. Can you believe it hadn't already been taken, folks? Wow. What a lucky break. You look so Hebrewish. You know what? I'm down to clown with that. I wouldn't mind being a Hebrew. Have you seen the masterpiece Freddy Got Fingered? I'm well aware of it, but I'd never sat down and watched the thing itself. I've seen the Red Letter Media review about it, though. Chimpanzee police? Yeah. Don't say goddamn it to me, you little shit. Oh, you're talking to somebody else? Okay. Never cut your sideburns? I wouldn't dream of it. I'm a big sideburns fan. I think even women should grow out their sideburns. It's a beautiful... It's a great way to frame the face, especially when you have a face that needs distractions so that people look at anything else. You gotta wear a hat and grow sideburns so nobody notices what the middle part looks like. Have you seen Asterios' interview with Quentin? Yeah, as soon as I realized Quentin Reviews is on the podcast, I unsubscribed and turned it off. So, there you go. Holy shit, it's Mumkey. Yep, in the flesh. Been here 3 days in a row, actually. I used to traditionally have giant Wolverine mutton chops before I grew a beard. I'm jealous, man. If I could grow them, I would show them. Women with mutton chops, yeah. That's the dream. I want to make a movie adaptation of The Triflers. Go for it. If you can find a cast that would work, more power to you. I don't think it's possible. But that's enough intro, folks. I'm not going to be one of those streamers who do 3-hour intros, folks. I know what you're here for, and it's definitely not me. You're here to hear. Yeah, that's the English language for you. You're here to hear the tales and stories of your depressed brethren, and once in a while, sistren. Usually trans sistren, though, if we're gonna be honest. I think next episode of this, I'm just gonna do all transgender stories, because we get so many of them. So, top of the hour, let's do it! Story number 1 of the night is... Tale of a True Femcel by True Femcel. Now, folks, in the chat, go ahead and give me a vote, a guess in the chat there. 1, if you think this True Femcel is a biological female, and 2, if you think it's a trans female. Let's get that out of the way and see which side is right. 2, 1, 2, 2, 3, 2. I don't know why you put 3. 45. Lots of 2s. So yeah, basically 90% of people think it's going to be a transgender femcel. And if you don't know, femcel means a female incel. But let's read it. Tale of a True Femcel by True Femcel. Come, I've got a tale to tell you. I'm unsure of whether or not stories such as this are still even read, and my tale is not as drastic as some of the others, but I hope it is unique enough to be entertaining. Unlike many who wander these depression-ridden halls of your YouTube channel, I am a female. And more specifically, a femcel. For reasons I will describe in excruciating detail. This is a tale of the bombastic battlefield of love and hate, growth and regression, domination and submission that rages in my head. So come and listen to my great tale. Everyone who has ever met me, save for maybe 1 or 2, would not think it, but I consider myself a very sexual person. More specifically, and I'm not quite sure how to say this, I'm a top. I like the thought of controlling someone sexually so much that just thinking about it a little bit sends shivers down my spine. I know better not to speak of it to anyone except those who wouldn't be disgusted by it. Don't get me wrong, I'm a complete virgin. A kissless, handholdless virgin. I haven't so much as gazed into the eyes of a male that liked me. But the amount of time I've spent contemplating and fantasizing has led me to where I am now. Because of this, I try to have a dominating presence. I want to look striking and strong. I am very adverse to the thought of looking cute or overly effeminate, almost to a somewhat autistic degree. I'm insecure about being too petite, despite being a decent 65 kilograms or 150 pounds. And the worst part is, I've never heard of any other girl feeling this way. Other girls are usually concerned with being overweight. They talk about liking guys who are overly confident. Even on the internet, I've never heard from anyone who feels the same way I do. I often wonder why I'm this way when others are not. I believe it to be a mix of childhood frustration, unconventional role models, and early exposure to sexual exploration. So, I will start with the story of my childhood. I was a shitty fucking kid. I was smart, top of my class even, but I was also a fucking dumbass. I don't know what was wrong with me, as I've never been diagnosed with anything past anxiety in my teenage years and a false diagnosis for ADHD. But that's it. I was quick to anger and tantrums, which made me a target for elementary school bullies. Friends would come and go quickly. I vividly recall this constant feeling of loneliness like a thorn in my heart. Other kids would have fun and go places in their perfect little lives while I played with sticks in my yard. And the worst part is that every fucking second of pain was my fault. I wasn't poor. My parents were good. I didn't have any mental illnesses holding me back. I was just a shitty person. This frustration extended to all facets of my life and affects me even now. As a kid, I was ruthlessly competitive, unable to bear the thought of losing, of not being the best. Maybe it was because I was so used to being the smart one, or I had so few friends I never had anyone there to offer me challenge. I did track in 7th grade, which became a miserable experience for me because not only did I not win, I came in last in every fucking race, and that killed me. It's because of this that even now, although I've matured, I can't bear the thought of others being superior to me. I'm constantly wanting to assert myself over others. Perhaps it's because of this disconnect from others when I was a kid that I spent a lot of time exploring the internet. I got my first tablet at a relatively young age and spent all of my time watching YouTube. Of course, YouTube is a mostly male-targeted platform, so most, if not all of the channels I watched had male perspectives, or male personalities. Even the TV shows I watched were for boys. I considered myself a tomboy, so I wasn't really too heavily exposed to a female perspective as a kid, I suppose. Even my childish pretend games were more akin to being a knight on the battlefield than a princess in a tower. Not to say that any of that is exceptionally unique, just that it may have, in combination with these other aspects, made me the way I am now. I view myself in a more masculine light than I think I'm supposed to. I'm not quite sure. For example, being competitive, having the instinct to compete for rather than to select a partner, an instinct to provide rather than nurture, wishing I was taller and stronger, all things that I've heard guys say, but not girls. This does not at all mean I have gender dysphoria. I still think of myself as a girl. The idea of being a male is foreign to me. But there's no doubt that all of this has complicated my history of sexual confusion. I guess the thing that most directly, or I guess the thing most directly relating to sex of all this is that I learned to masturbate when I was 6 years old. Okay. Don't want to read that. Yeah, it started with the pool jets in my grandma's swimming pool and evolved me into me discovering that. I was confused for the longest time. I didn't know what sex was, or that what I was doing was inappropriate. I got confused when I liked things that were even vaguely sexual. I saw stuff on the internet that confused me but never really confronted what I was feeling. When I was 10, I got so scared that I snapped and told my mom, so she had to explain what masturbation was to me. I later saw a YouTube video explaining sex addiction. Again, I had a lot of time to explore the internet, and got so scared when I realized that I was experiencing just that. For the longest time, I felt wrong about it, and I felt like I needed to stop liking sex for the rest of my life. It wasn't until I was maybe 13 or 14 that I grew fully comfortable with it and began exploring what I liked. Before that, I had seen porn and stuff, but never explored what I liked specifically. So, one night, I thought about what it would be like to dominate someone, and needless to say, for the reasons described above, that clicked with me. And that's where my childhood, with all of its trauma, ended and shit really began. I played with the idea of what I wanted for the next few years. I struggled with it. For a long time, I felt like I wanted to be a dominant in the sense that I wanted my partner to depend on me. It took me a while to realize that people who try to make others depend on them are actually the weak ones themselves. I was scared of the thought of being dominated myself. I thought that liking that would make me weak and avoided the thought like the plague. It took me longer, yet, to realize that the strongest are able to handle things like that and still stay strong, and that the weak crumble in the face of those things. I guess it got to a point that I realized that I was weak and convicted that I didn't want to be anymore. I had been weak my whole life. Emotionally, the smallest things to send me spiraling into a tantrum. Physically, I had failed in sports and was miserable because of it. So I decided that I wanted to actually better myself from the stupid, driveling child I had been. And high school welcomed me. The actual events of high school are both incredibly boring, exceptionally fulfilling, and terribly traumatizing all at once. Nothing happened through middle school, or even really my freshman year. I just got slowly and progressively hornier and more frustrated until shit started breaking down. I hadn't had a crush on anyone in years, so the summer before my sophomore year, I decided that I had a crush on my friend from school. I'll call him Mason. My crushes at this point weren't sexual, just heavily emotional. We went to summer camp together, so we got to spend a lot of time together, and I felt like we just clicked. My friendships had felt stale up until then, but with him, our senses of humor were so in tune, and I could have a lot of fun just talking to him. But as with all tales of hopeless love, he had a girlfriend. I felt so retarded after I found out. We were at my aunt's house for a party. Someone jokingly asked him who his crush was, so he simply replied that he was dating his crush. I said nothing, but that I had to go to the bathroom. I ran out of the house and into the woods at night. I still remember just falling asleep to my... I remember falling to my knees and crying, actually letting myself wail as I stared to the stars. It was so pathetic. I was never even courageous enough to hint that I liked him. I just had to hear him name his girlfriend by chance. The name of the girl just kept echoing in my head. Jane. This girl. I don't know if I love or hate her. She's a bitch. An insufferable, ratty bitch who doesn't care about others. She's rash, stupid, and oblivious. She's always just smiling this stupid smile that says she doesn't care because she's better than everyone, especially you. Even when I see pictures of her now, she has that same smile in every one of them. But at the same time, I've never met anyone like her. I joined stage crew my freshman year for the school musical. I spent the week there fawning over this one nerdy kid in the cast, just admiring how cute he looked from afar. After the first show, the curtains closed and everyone just rejoiced for the performance they had just put on. It was so undeniably happy, so I just watched. I wasn't necessarily upset that I wasn't involved in the celebration until this one girl came up to me. Jane. She wrapped her arms around me, lifted me up off the ground. "You look left out," in quotes. That action probably seemed like nothing to her. She might have been oblivious to the fact that she was being nice at all, but I still remember that as one of my happiest moments. I felt this feeling of pure joy and hopefulness few times in my entire life, and this one was thanks to Jane. But my love-hate for Jane didn't mitigate how crushed I felt. I spent the next few days utterly depressed, waiting for the pain of the unceremonious rejection to subside. I hadn't felt that level of depression any other time in my life. For days, I didn't want to do anything. Every second was another second. I could remember it and break down. It took me months for me to even be able to look at Mason, my close friend, without remembering it. I'd see them holding hands sometimes, and the thought that they were even together like that made me sick in the stomach in the worst way. Hell, I even felt bad about the way I felt, knowing that I was being unfair to their relationship by being so jealous. I wanted to tell Mason so many times what was going on with me, but never did, and just waited for the feeling to subside. Mason didn't go to homecoming with Jane that year because he hates school dances, or really any kind of social gathering. It makes me wonder how they even managed to be together for so long as they did, considering Jane is one of the most outgoing people I've ever met. Anyway, I ended up going to homecoming with a group of 5 that Jane was also in. The event was mediocre. We went to IHOP afterward to meet up with some other kids and eat pancakes. Mason was there, and Jane drove everyone home afterwards. Jane and Mason were the last ones in the car, so I thought it would be interesting to leave my phone in her car as a recording device. I ended up getting an audio recording of them making out for like 30 minutes. But they didn't do or say anything else of note. I don't know why I did. I don't know why I did it to this day. Maybe I just wanted to feel clever and conniving. Maybe I wanted to see if they'd say anything about me. They didn't. To this day, it's the most drastic thing I've done. Probably. I don't know if I feel guilty about it or not. For the rest of sophomore year, I had a crush on Mason's friend, who I will dub Will. Will was great. I didn't like him at first, since he seemed like the generic pretty boy type. He was tall, and even I'd admit that he was exceptionally handsome and well-mannered. He was raised in a Christian household, so for him, it was no parties, no girls, no breaking the rules. Needless to say, all the girls were infatuated by him. At a school full of rednecks and hicks, he was an angel. I didn't like him at first, but then he started messaging me. It wasn't anything overt, he'd just send memes every once in a while. So the idea that he might just like me, little old me, got planted in my head. For the next year, I'd toil over him, doubtful, then hopeful, then hateful about the matter all over again. We were friends, good ones at that, but I could never fucking read him. It all ended so painfully anticlimactically. He wanted to go to, I'm just gonna read it the way she wrote it. He went to college across the country, and I haven't seen him since. I still feel lucky just to have met him. Even if my crush on him seems petty and stupid now, I will always admire how beautiful of a person he is, inside and out. I hope he finds a nice wife and has a healthy family. Since then, it feels like everything has changed, yet everything is still the same. I moved to a charter school for my junior year, mostly because I wanted a change of pace and was hoping that I could meet new people. That worked somewhat. Things seemed different at first, but I slowly just fell back into the same place I was before. Someone you could sit and chat with, but not someone you'd really want to get to know. Someone you could just tune out if you wanted. I go very long periods of time without saying a word each day, and I haven't heard of a single person who had a crush on me, or even tried to pursue me in any extent since middle school. Despite the person I try to be, despite the presence I try to have, I inevitably just melt into the background. I began thinking that maybe I'm just the kind of person guys don't like. I'm not very flirtatious, most of my conversations are stupid and brash. I laugh at dumb shit all the time and probably come across as pretty autistic rather than elegant and captivating like I want to. I constantly wonder why I specifically don't have a boyfriend despite being debatably attractive. And one of my conclusions is that my personality isn't appealing. Maybe there's someone out there who will take a liking to me eventually. Sometimes it feels like I'll never be in a relationship, and I'm just not meant to. But how can that be when I spend what feels like half of my life contemplating love and sex? I want to have something amazing with someone. I want to have someone that I'd spend an eternity fighting for if I could. I want to travel places, undergo hardships, explore every aspect of my sexuality with a person who it feels like I've known my entire life. Why are the people who view love and sex as some petty technical thing meant to fall in love when I'm not? My sex life now consists of getting off to fictional characters. I haven't had a liking to anyone I know in real life for a long time. I'm trying to be patient, but my irrational sexual fury makes that so difficult. Sometimes I feel so frustrated I literally don't know what to do and it feels like I'm going to burst. Literally any time I don't have anything else to do, I start fantasizing and I need to constantly be on my phone just to keep my thoughts off of it. And the worst part is that I've never met anyone who feels the way I do. And I'm not talking about some weird internet community. It feels like every other girl is able to talk about what they like with others and I'm just stuck. Hell, that's not even taking into account the impossibility of finding a guy who's into the shit I'm into. That's a whole beast I haven't even begun to tackle. Sometimes I feel like the only person like me who exists. I can't even say it without being looked at as one of those quirky girls, but I'm genuinely just upset by this. I don't think I'm better than or hate people who aren't like me. I just feel so utterly alone in this. But I'm not completely sad. I feel a strange sense of peace. I've grown so much from all this. That time I vowed that I wasn't going to be weak anymore, I don't think it was an empty promise. There was a time when I would have been scared to write all this out. Hell, there was a time when I just didn't have the writing skills. I'm learning to be comfortable with and better myself. That is what keeps me going through every crisis, every breakdown, every rejection, because I still feel potential for change, potential for things to get better. So I guess that's my tale. It seemed a lot more sad when I sat down to write it, but I'm starting to think that it's less depressing than your depression chamber would allow. Ah well, make of it what you will. And that's the story of the true femcel. Okay, folks, I got an easy solution. Every time we read a story, we try to come up with a solution to fix the person's life. My solution is right there, baby. The chat. Girl, if you're watching this, there are 205 potential suitors who are pathetic enough that they'll take any lady, right there in my chat. No. God damn it. Howard, pointing is hard. Over there. Check them, folks. Check them. Chat, if you would date this girl knowing that she's 150 pounds and wants to dominate you, go ahead and drop a heart in the chat. Give me a heart emoji in the chat if you are a man who would date this girl. And we'll count the hearts, and then she can no longer say she's a femcel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I see a lot of fucking hearts over there. I see a lot of hearts. I hope she's watching this, and if she is, I don't know how she'll message any of you. I'll tell you what, we can be the matchmaker, folks. If she is watching this, and I hope she does watch it at some point, lady, girl, femcel, email me if you're interested from the same email that you sent your story with, if you would like me to match you up with any of the cucks in this chat who want to fuck you. The story ends with her, I think, in her junior year of high school, so that might be something to take into consideration. but I could definitely match you up with any of these people. I hope she's at least 18 by now. If you're 18, send the email. If not, I got nothing for you. Man Band says he's going to jail. Seymour is still down. Uh-oh. I have to assume Seymour is at least 14. Imagine if she meets someone on here, then they have a kid, and when that kid is asked how his parents met, he shows them this site. Yeah. Yeah, you know, I would like to think that in my 5 years of YouTubing and Twitching and all that, at least a few couples have met because of my influence. I know a few for sure, but I mean, the Asperger didn't really, those relationships didn't end up too well, but I know that it's happened. Maybe it's for the best that they don't. If the only thing that two people have in common is that they've watched my videos, they probably should never meet. Probably should never meet. Goddamn hair. Goddamn mirrored reflection bullshit. The incel matchmaker, yeah. Alright, let's move on to the next story. Oh! Oof, okay. This story is called My Fiance Tried to Kill Me in Front of Our Infant Daughter by George. Okay. Sorry if this is hard to read, and I don't just mean 'cause it's dark. It would be an even longer story as to why I don't type well, and it's not relevant to the story. For many reasons, I didn't have a good start in life. My father killed himself when I was 6 years old, and my middle brother would die a memer 6 years later in a deer-related car accident. I have an older brother who wasn't around and didn't live with us, so we weren't that close. Much of my life was spent raised by my mother, which isn't too bad. My mother did her best, and I was kind of a little shit when I was a kid anyways. But then weren't we all? Anyways. I had just graduated high school with the world before me, so many possibilities. And rather than doing the smart thing to take off a year and figure out what I wanted to do, I instead bounced back and forth between a job and college, never really getting anywhere. Part of the problem is that I have severe general anxiety that made doing either needed thing in adult life very difficult, and yes, this will be relevant to parts of the story. It was while being in between a job that it was while being in between either a job that the internet came to our home, and I soon found this strange new world of chat rooms. Remember chat rooms? I had just discovered some generic chat room called Manson Chat, named for Marilyn Manson. Yes, I was goth AF, and not Charles, when I met a girl, which would blossom into my first online relationship. But little did I know that she wasn't all that interested in me, but she left the computer to use the bathroom, and one of her sisters took over typing, even going so far as to give out their phone number. So I called, and a very surprised Cassie answered the phone. It was only later I found that Cassie herself wasn't that interested in me. In fact, Cassie at the time was a lesbian. ... Or so I thought. Or so I thought she was one, and was already in a toxic IRL relationship with another woman. But somehow we got to talking and seemed to like each other, and soon a long-distance relationship because we started to write to each other through the mail. Remember the mail as the main way we texted? I sent her drawings, as I am an artist, and she loved them and would send me letters of love back. Over time, we grew very close, and then she told me of her relationship with this woman. I have long since forgotten the woman's name, but apparently the last straw was the other woman wanted to date a bunch of people, but wanted Cassie to be only with her and wanted us to break up. Cassie refused, and that was the end of them leaving only us, which is what I wanted all along. And before people shout, "Cuck!" I had no idea she was dating someone else while we were dating. That should have been a red flag, but I was young, dumb, and very full of cum. So I shrugged it off because I loved this woman. We finally set about to meet IRL. Her mother was marrying for the umpteenth time, red flag number 2, and so the wedding was the perfect time to bring me down to see her. I was in California at the time, and she was in New Mexico. So I flew down there, my first real trip alone to anywhere, and I was a virgin at the time. Oh, if only I could go back. I had severe anxiety all on the trip, and I didn't know the trip would trigger it, and my meds didn't work, only sleeping worked. This set her off big time into a massive fight when I got home. But there was more than that. On the trip, we ended up in a hot tub, me and her sisters and her. Well, Annie, the baby sister, started getting a little flirty, almost hands-on. I did my best to rebuff her advances and thought I did a good job. Well, then I get in trouble because Annie eventually runs to Cassie and is like, "You need to control your man." Like, what? But it didn't matter. After a lot of mutual masturbation behind the barn. Yes, there was a barn in this story. I finally lost my virginity to Cassie on the last night. I wish I hadn't. So I get home after a long flight back. This is in the pre-9/11 days when traveling was so much easier, but still a hassle, only to find angry messages from her. "Why didn't you tell you about your anxiety?" she shouted. "I had no idea it could get that bad. I thought if it did, I could use my meds and be fine," I answered back truthfully. She was not having it, somehow, having something happen to me that wasn't planned, and I couldn't have known would be an issue, was an issue, a big one, and it became part of our first breakup, which devastated me, as it would anyone who lost their virginity to someone. Eventually, we got back together. Sorry, I saw a chat that said, "How the fuck is this the depression?" I'm sure, I mean, if you saw the title, I'm sure we're getting there. Eventually, we got back together, though she confessed to me that she wanted to break up with me after the trip because at the time she wasn't that into me. Red flag number 3. But grew to love me and want me back. I'll spare you months of bullshit and accusations of cheating that would have ended any sane relationship dead. I never cheated, but because of her bitch of a mom, and I'll back this up later on Cassie didn't trust men, so you can imagine why she went for the bearded clam so much. But eventually we came to live together, and oh boy, strap in, cause this will be messy as hell. I am at work when I get a call on the phone, and keep in mind I was working at Toys R Us at the time, so I had to go to the break room to take the call. It's Cassie, and she's now out on the streets. Why, you may ask? Well, you see, her brother hit her in the head with a 2x4, but it's okay, cause hit him back in the face with a skateboard. Her mother had had enough and threw Cassie out, so she was living with a friend but couldn't stay there long. This should be all the red flags in the world, all of them. But I convinced my parents to let her come stay with us because I didn't have a good enough paying job to live out on my own at the time, and they felt so sorry for her as I did. So our life together began. Now prior to this, she had never displayed acts of aggression, but the way she was thrown out of the house should have told me everything. One night, things got heated over something seriously trivial, and she hit me. Then again. Then kicked me, and so it started. She was physically abusive, and I was finding out firsthand what that felt like. And yes, audience, she was a chubby goth GF. You can all laugh amongst yourself, but under that fat was some muscle and no impulse control. She left to take a walk as I sat there dazed at what had happened. She came back later on and apologized, and I forgave her, but inside my heart was already broken. I had done literally nothing, and she hit me over it. Thus we entered into level 1 crazy. It only gets worse from there. Now, in spite of her size, she could fuck and fuck good. Part of why we stayed together as long as we did, but it wasn't super easy. But this was our life. As the story normally goes, when it was good, it was really good, but when it was bad, it was worse. She'd abuse me, mentally and physically, then get homesick, where we'd fly her out to spend time with her mom. She'd then call me up at odd hours asking to come back and that she was sorry and she loved me, and I fell for it almost every time. Later on, it started to get worse. We tried to get her help and even was paying to get her into college to get her life on track. It didn't work, and she even threw it in our faces. She was more or less beyond help, and that wasn't just her opinion, my opinion. Her psychologist eventually came to the same conclusions. But we honestly tried to help her, but one day she's going through some old boxes of mine when way down in a box covered in dust, she finds a box from an old GF that I had long since forgotten about. In said box were some nudes and some old love letters from said GF. But this was the first of many last straws. She punched me, and as I got up, she grabbed a kitchen knife and started to swipe at me with the intentions of stabbing and or possibly killing me. While she did cut my shirt in a few places, she eventually gave up and locked herself in the bathroom and attempted to kill herself. But eventually she unlocked the door. All over a box of old nudes that I had long ago packed away and forgotten about, as this person was from long before Cassie and I had gotten together. But I didn't call the police, that time even when she admitted it was a blind rage and attempted murder. Oh, but it gets worse. So by this time, I was worked at Compusa. Cassie had had one of her freakouts and went back home. The co-worker situation was mostly women, many of whom had known I was being abused, because my Cassie had done at work a few times. A co-worker had expressed that someone I kinda had eyes for but never said anything had expressed feelings for me, and this co-worker wasn't fat as fuck either. Quite the opposite, and would be a very big upgrade to my current situation. That day I had resolved that I was done with Cassie. The sun was shining, the birds seemed to be singing. I was done. I would tell Cassie after work that day, and my life could change for the better. I was so happy. Then I get into the car and my mother is there with her cell phone to her ear and she hands the phone off to me. It's Cassie, ... and she's pregnant. God fucking damn it, I was out. I was so safe from what was to come. She wasn't my problem anymore. And then this shit happens. What the actual fuck? And that was all in caps. So obviously I had to abandon my plans because Cassie wanted to for sure keep the baby. Or so I thought, and I had to step up and be a man, be a father. So I decided I'd try to make this work for the sake of our kid. I didn't want to do the broken home thing, and the courts would not have been kind on any of this. She and I got back together. Eventually, I lost my job at Compusa. Oh, Comp USA. I'm guessing this means Comp USA. He's just making it one word with no capitalization. I'm sorry. Comp USA, and never saw that coworker ever again. I went back to college determined to get myself back on track to a career for our future child. But slowly my heart was dying. I would do all I could and give my all for this, but I was still so done with Cassie, so done with the abuse and attempts on my life. But it gets even worse. So she had the baby, and it's honestly one of the greatest days of my life. My daughter was so precious, and my heart grew for her once I saw her. I knew I'd do anything for her once I saw her. I knew I'd do anything for her, even endure and try to love her worthless cunt of a mother. The birth wasn't easy, though, and there was a chance we almost lost her, but I am grateful we didn't in spite of her mother. But another big issue that does hit some fathers is I shut down sexually after the birth of our child. I read that nearly half the men who have a child with a spouse will go through this, and it's not fully known why it happens and why it happens to who it does, but I wasn't even masturbating. I was just not there sexually. This is when things get almost to their darkest point. You take a sexually frustrated, physically abusive woman who you yourself at not strong enough to resist and yeah, she raped me under threat of violence. And no, I don't mean the game dude idea of rape. I mean actual rape. But it gets darker. She got off me when she realized I really didn't want it, and then as I went to sleep feeling horrible and violated, she wrote a note and stuck it in my stuff that I found years later, where she details how she is watching me breathe and wondering very much what it would be like to make that stop. She wrote a note confessing how much she wanted to kill me after she raped me. And to make matters worse, she didn't even care what she did and tried to rationalize that I gave her a pity fuck and it's my fault for not wanting it. But believe it or not, in time, I do have a police report behind this. It gets even worse. And so eventually we get to a place of mutually break up, but we'll live together and tried to make it work for our daughter. Even though by this point it was like being a single dad. I was the one doing feedings, I was the one changing diapers, and no, I didn't mind doing it. I'm not complaining, she's my daughter. I was the one getting 2 hours of sleep a night, caring for our child day in, day out, from sun up till whenever. Well, I was back in chat rooms again, as these were still mostly a thing at this point, when I made the mistake of being factual in an email that I stupidly left open. I met someone else who was living with their ex and made the mistake of saying that my situation was the same. I went to the bathroom thinking nothing of it, and when I came back, my ex was already reading the letter with a furious look on her face. By now, I had proposed. Under duress. By now I had proposed under duress. I I might add, so she had rings I had gotten her as we were heading towards a bloody, loveless marriage that, spoiler alert, would have likely ended my life. She comes to me and throws the rings into my face and says we are done, and then kicks me out of our bedroom that I would spend the rest of my life sleeping on the couch while she got our comfy room. I had 2 hours to clean out my shit, and anything left would be thrown out in the trash. So thinking nothing of it, I threw out a bottle of Astroglide, which we had purchased for our sexy times. My thinking was that we wouldn't need it anymore, so why keep it around? I still wasn't really fucking her at this point, and it's so say nothing of the rape as well. Well, so I am watching Adult Swim, which was the one thing I got every Sunday night where I could escape from the hell my life had become. I thought, okay, I got my shit in boxes, am sleeping on a futon, but at least I could have this after all the stress of our toxic relationship further imploding. Cassie comes storming in, the last person I wanted to talk to, and she asks me, "Where is the Astroglide?" I told her calmly it didn't matter. She asked me again. I eventually said, well, it was for us, and there is no us anymore, so I threw it away. Wrong answer. She punched so hard I fell back into the futon. Before I knew what was going on, she was on top of me. My 90-pound frame under around 200-something pounds. And she had her hands around my throat. Our infant daughter was on the floor crying for mommy as she's choking me out, and I don't mean sexually. She's screaming about how she hates me. Our daughter is crying. I am struggling to get her to stop because I can't breathe, and just as things are going dark, my stepfather comes in and does a Navy hold on her, eventually restraining her while my mother calls the police. The cops came and saw I was full of marks all over my face and neck, my mother trying to calm our baby while I try to recover. The cops took her away and put her into a mental hospital on 72-hour hold. I didn't press charges beyond assault, but I didn't take it much further than that. It was a dark time, but it still wasn't some of the darkest shit. No, that wouldn't be till the later years where we were long since not living anywhere near each other, and the custody battle started. I sure as shit wasn't going to let my ex-bitch have our child and ruin them. This wasn't about child support payments or the courts. This was about my daughter needing me, and I wasn't going to leave her to become like her mother. Oh, fuck no. I'll spare you the long version and just get to some of the darkest shit now. One day I am tired out from another day at work. I was in another state by then, working at a car wash, which wasn't a job that I hated all that much. Fresh air, plenty to do to keep you occupied, and the asshole customers were few and far between. But we had no legal agreements to limit visitations or put restrictions in place. My ex would just show up and ask for our daughter, and then we'd have to go pick her up because my ex didn't have the money to keep her around nor to return her. Enough was enough, so I started in with lawyers, and it got predictably ugly. Which bring us back to this one day. I am asleep. Our daughter was at daycare, and so I could rest up before my daughter was to come home. When my mother wakes me up, and it's the district attorney from California, my cunt of an ex tried to make a claim against me that when we first fucked, she was underage, which was beyond not true. Thankfully, the DA backed off once he found out there was a custody dispute between us, but this bitch tried to get me thrown in jail and put on a fucking registry, all to win her cause by default. It didn't work, and thankfully, so cause once her parenting failed, as it later did in life, she would have had to turn to me to save our daughter, and I couldn't not, while on a fucking sex offender registry, not to mention the time in jail with people would think I rape children. But the day came for our preliminary trial, and out of nowhere, my ex's attorney comes to our attorney and whispers in their ear. They go out into the hall, and my attorney comes back not long before we were set to go before the judge to start all this, and they tell me she'd like to agree with everything we asked, which didn't include child support because she didn't work with, and nothing from nothing is still nothing. I wasn't that evil though, she was. But she'd agreed to sign over everything to me, giving primary care status, meaning our child stayed with me if she could have her in the hotel for the night. What? I don't like where this is going. We agreed, and she went before the judge to put it all on record. The judge even threatened that he'd send the state of Texas after her if she ran with our child. I loved that judge so much. I got out with my life, but deep, deep mental scars, and my child had a much better chance in life than her mother ever would have given her. So to my ex, she continued failed relationship after failed relationship. Okay. I was afraid that she was going to do something to the daughter in the hotel, but it looks like that didn't happen. Good. Eventually, when our daughter was 8, my ex was an abusive drunk. She didn't drink when we were together, and she crossed the line into abusing our child, who had autism in full swing by this point. Once we got my daughter back, my daughter was so broken from one summer that she wanted to kill herself. But rather than go after my ex legally, we cut off all contact with her and waited for her to file against us if she dared. But she couldn't afford it. We spent the money we would have on legal fees to get my daughter back to herself and not an 8-year-old who wanted to end her own life. My ex overall was young when we had our daughter. We were both in our 20s, and she didn't want to be tied down. I skipped over a lot, but I later found out that her cunt of a mother was not only the one telling her to try to get pregnant so we'd have to stay together, but she also convinced my ex that because she gestated our baby for 9 months, then it was only fair that I take care of the baby all alone for that same period. My ex ended up getting so fat she could no longer walk on her own. She had no one to love, and when her fat became so much that her heart needed a pacemaker, she refused it, went home, and downed a bottle of pills. She keeled over, falling out of her wheelchair, and died. I can't say I am not happy the bitch game ended herself. My daughter even wants to find her grave to piss on it. Damn the laws. Yeah. I was not expecting the story to have a happy ending. As to me, I didn't date for a long time after Cassie because I felt I was in no shape to pick a good woman to be my child's stepmom. I didn't trust myself to make good choices beyond the basic ones for my daughter's day-to-day. And while my daughter is now an adult, it's been a long road to get her back to a place of being kind and caring. Her mother left us both in a bad state for some time now. I still get nightmares about her, and it's hard to forget her. I don't think I have ever grown to hate someone so much in my life, but as one final slap in the face to my parents talk about how she was victim too, because of the abuse she grew up with, and that I should forgive her for what she's done. Forgive her? I don't think there is such a thing after all that. We all tried so hard to give her a better life and a better future, and she threw it in our faces. True, she was abused too, but is that really any excuse? Anyways, take care, Jimmy. Signed, George. Whew. You know, it's not often we get stories from boomers, and it really shows that these older folk with long lives and long tales to tell, they've got their life experience grants them stories that are far more fascinating than, oh, I'm a teenager and nobody wants to date me. Oh, fuck, George. Good for you, dude. Man, after all that you took care of that kid, you made sure that Your child was not in the hands of an abusive, fat ogre monster in a wheelchair? Oh, man. George, you're a hero to me. I wonder how old this guy is. I don't know. He's probably like in his 50s or 60s now if his daughter is an adult. This story is going to the main channel, right? It could. It certainly could. You dropped your crown, king. George, give us a Patreon. George is a true hero. Wowee. That's rough. I guess I'm glad that the bitch died. And I'm glad that it was due to, her own stupidity. She got fat as fuck, refused to take the correct medication, and then dropped dead. Well deserved, I say. Well deserved. It's way too specific to be fake. I think it's full of way too many typos and grammatical errors to be fake. This has authenticity written all over it. Alright, folks. Usually I would ask for advice for George, but it sounds like he doesn't need it. Really, he's the one who should be giving all of us advice. I can't imagine going through... I mean, any of us in the chat probably feel like we've been through some rough shit, but after reading that, I've never been through anything nearly as horrible as what George is talking about. First of all, being a 90-pound man... having sex with a woman over 200 pounds, that would traumatize me for life to begin with. But he was into that in the beginning. That was his choice. And all the stuff that came after was just fucking horrible. Is the daughter hot? That's a good question, Bionicle Forever. Let's hope she doesn't take after her mother. Okay, well, you guys ready for the next one? All right, you guys want to talk about George a little bit? You want to soak in the George juices, or should we just move on to the next story? Move on, okay. I think this one's a bit shorter. It's called How I Became an Orphan at Age 14 by Gray. Hi, Mumkey. I just wanted to put my thoughts into words. You can share this if you want. I'll be changing names for anonymity. Not falling for that one again. My name is Gray, and I was born when my parents were in their mid-40s. This will be important later on. My mother was married twice before my dad and had a daughter who she refused to speak to, and my father was married once and had 2 daughters who would not speak to him, and a son who was battling cancer. My early childhood was pretty good, or so I thought at the time. I have an autistic brother named Colin, and I have no idea why he looks up to me, as I'm a shitty role model. My father was a locomotive engineer, and my mom was disabled in a work accident when I was 3 or 4. My dad was pretty cool, but my mom screamed constantly, always grounded me, and smoked in the house with us. We went camping all the time when I was a kid, and on one trip I met a girl named Maddie. I was 4. Her family became a second family to mine, and we are close friends to this day, 11 years ago. My older half-brother died when I was 6, and it crushed my dad. Fast forward a couple of years, and my parents were fighting. We went on a camping trip without my dad one time, and after that, my parents nearly got a divorce due to the fact that my dad cheated on my mom with some whore he met on Craigslist and got an STI. Ugh. My parents rarely, if ever, slept in the same room after that. My dad had a man cave built in the backyard where he would collect railroad and war memorabilia, which was cool as hell. The inside looked like a bomb shelter. I'd go out on the weekends, and we would stay up and watch Me TV, which is an antenna channel in North Carolina where they play old shows. My dad would draw and restore old railroad shit. I wish my parents spent more time with me. If it wasn't about trains or cars or guns, my old man wanted nothing to do with it. My mom was a grumpy hermit. In school, I generally got along with people, but I was quiet as hell and was really insecure. My dad got cancer in 2017, and my life has been on a downward spiral ever since. He fought it for a year and died on December 10, 2018 at roughly 1 in the morning. I was 13. After this, I started drinking heavily and smoking pot and failed most of my classes, while my mom fell apart from the grief. I sort of did too. Things started looking up 7 months later after I discovered my passion for music and started playing guitar while I was at a shitty church camp. I'm not religious at all. I barely passed 8th grade and joined AFJROTC in my freshman year. It was great and I felt good about myself for the first time ever. Then I found my mom dead in her room unexpectedly when I got up for school on Wednesday, January 29th, 2020. Her alarm woke me up and I went into her room to wake her up. After yelling at her to get the hell out of bed, she still wouldn't move. Finally, it occurred to me that something was wrong after shaking her and yelling for about 10 minutes. I hadn't even said goodnight to her as I was busy doing homework that night to make her proud. I'm a pleaser and I kept my grades up for her. I felt her skin and it was extremely cold. I called her best friend, Linda, Maddie's grandma, and she told me to call 911. I also called this old fucker from New York named Gary, who my mom insisted I kept a relationship with. When I called 911, the operator told me to roll her over and perform CPR, which luckily I knew how to do. She was too heavy, so I woke Colin up to help me roll her over. When Colin saw her face, he screamed, but I remained relatively calm in some stressful situations. I performed CPR to no avail, and paramedics arrived. They took one glance at her and told us that they were sorry and there was nothing they could do. My jaw dropped and my world shattered for the second time in a year. I went to live with Gary and I started drinking heavily again. I self-harmed and only wanted to die. Also, my girlfriend of 9 months left me. My school found out I was cutting and suggested Gary take me to a mental facility, which he did. Did I mention that Gary verbally and emotionally abused my autistic brother? While I was in the hospital, Gary found my liquor, weed, and knives and threw it away. He also took my cell phone, which was my only connection to the outside of his house. He banned me from talking to my small, dysfunctional family. A month after I left the hospital, in March, I tried to off myself by overdosing on my antidepressants and giving myself alcohol poisoning, but not before cutting my left arm up with a knife I sharpened. The last thing I remember is me watching Me TV like in old times on his couch. Later, I was informed I trashed his living room by puking everywhere, broke an antique lamp, and fell and hit my head on the fireplace. I nearly drowned in my own vomit, and sadly, I survived. I was in holding in the hospital for 2 weeks before they let me go home. Gary kicked me out of his house, good riddance, and I moved in with my uncle, who actually respects me, and my brother. I am alive, I am 15, I am an orphan, and my life is utterly bleak. Maddie won't talk to me because I made her uncomfortable while we were drunk, and I called her cousin a dumb drunk bitch. That was 2 days ago, and I just want to stop existing. If you read this story so far, thank you for listening. I missed the Mumkey Jones channel, but no going back. Also, I'm a shitty writer if you can't tell. Well, you know, I take it back. Maybe even teenagers can have stories as fucking horrible. I mean, not as horrible as Gary, but and that's pretty upsetting. I don't know if I've seen even a dead body before in my life other than like at a funeral, but that's when, you know, they're all gunked up with whatever they do to them, and it wasn't even really anybody I knew, so I can't imagine being a kid walking in and finding your mother's corpse and then performing mouth to mouth on it. That doesn't seem very good. Well, this is a 15-year-old, and all of this shit happened to him basically this year. If you thought your 2020 was bad, I guess here's some perspective for you. Do we have any advice in the chat? Good luck. I don't have any advice. Do you guys have anything? And this episode of the Depression Chamber really lived up to the name. Yeah, no shit. Execute Gary. Okay. Read One Piece, bro. It'll change your life. God fucking damn it. Become a Twitch streamer. You guys are just listing things that I do. It's not gonna help. Have sex with your GF. Heard sex cures depression. Yep, okay. Keep your head up and get back on weed. Okay. Stop being an orphan. You guys are swell. You guys are just swell. Remind me to never take any of your advice in my personal life. Needs therapy. Don't be Mumkey. I'm pretty sure this guy would much rather be me at this point. He's one of the few people who can say that. Don't be sad. Stop being sad. Sad. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think maybe we should skip the advice column for the future episodes. God damn it, I always try to hit the same hair, and I always use the wrong fucking hand. Alright. Looks like we have another story from a real-life girl, folks. So I'm sure it'll be nothing compared to the two male stories we just read. Sorry, women. Okay, after hearing about the guy who was almost murdered by his fiance in front of their infant daughter, and the guy who, you know, tried to save his dead mother, let's hear My Battle with Anorexia by Anonymous. I feel like my life has always been significantly harder due to mental issues. My grandmother had severe anxiety and self-harm issues. I never got to meet her because 2 days after I was born, she died from skin cancer. This is not about my grandmother, though, but I feel it affected me to who I became today. I always struggled with my body. In the 4th grade, I told my teacher I could not have a cupcake because I was on a diet. Of course, the teacher told my mom, but she just scolded me during the ride home. I always was a skinny child. The doctors were never concerned with me. But that all changed a few years later. During the 8th grade, my depression had grown so bad it manifested into me developing an eating disorder. I would manipulate myself into thinking I did not need any amount of food or water, as if I did not deserve basic human needs. My parents did not think anything of me skipping meals every day. The teachers at my middle school thought I was just doing it for attention and decided to focus on a girl who did not bring a lunch for one day. I would look in the mirror and see how ugly I was, ribs sticking out of my skin. I could not stop for some reason, though. Of course, my mental problems did not disappear when I transitioned into high school. I became even skinnier and started to throw up my food. During my 2nd semester of freshman year, I finally tried to reach out for help from my biology teacher. I began to trust him over a period of time and opened up about my problems on an assignment for my class was given. My teacher wanted us to create a diet chart, what we typically ate in a week, and publicly share it in the collaboration space. I decided to be totally honest about my very unhealthy diet and emailed the document to him so the other kids in my class could not read it. Under certain protocols, my biology teacher had to contact my guidance counselor and had my parents come in 2 days afterwards. My counselor tried to assure me, saying how I was not the only one to come out about mental issues that affected my academics. Instead of trying to understand the situation, my parents were infuriated with me. My mother would repeat day after day about how she did not believe I had an eating disorder and went against my counselor's advice of trying to get an actual therapist for me. My father played everything off as me having a meltdown over grades after midterms. I felt hopeless and unloved. The two people I thought would understand completely downgraded my own emotions for the sake of them not wanting a mentally ill child. It got to the point where my physician became heavily concerned for me after finding out I only weighed 70 pounds at 15 years old. She called my mother into the room to discuss getting a therapist and for me to be introduced to an outpatient program. I started to cry over embarrassment at myself and what I had done to my body. The last thing I wanted was help because I was forced to believe I did not deserve anything or anyone's love. After the doctor's appointment, my mom told me if I do not eat, she would take everything away from me. Both my parents would punish me for trying to eat by taking away my paintings or my books. At the first outpatient visit, I lied to everyone. I would tell them that I was not depressed and that I was fine at school. On the survey they made me fill out, I would always circle strongly disagree for all questions related to depression. Outpatient did not help me at first, as I was still losing weight quick. By August, 2 months after I started outpatient, I weighed 65 pounds at age 15. My parents were furious at me. I would try to explain to them how I felt, but I would always be met with the same answer. I do not want to talk about this right now. I do not want to hear it. Why is it so hard to eat? September 2018, I was put into inpatient. At first, I hated it. I felt like I did not belong there. After every meal, I would try to go to the bathroom and throw up, to the point where I tore my esophagus. My team at the hospital agreed to put me on a feeding tube that would pump Ensure directly to my stomach as a means to slowly transition the refeeding process back to actual food. I hated my life. I hated that I was missing school and time for my friends. I felt truly alone, and I can guarantee a lot of people have felt that way. It was not until November 2018 that I started to accept what I was doing was wrong, and that I was killing myself. Over time, I started to eat actual food. I talked to my inpatient therapist about things that may have caused my depression and anorexia/bulimia. The next month, I was cleared to leave and go back to school under the condition that I would eat 3 snacks and have a full lunch every day. I was just happy to leave the hospital. June of that same year, my closest friend berated me and used my insecurities against me. They turning every single one of my friends against me, all because I finished a project without them. My school did nothing on the matter after I had approached them 3 times about the incident. My friend, who I trusted, started to abuse me to make themselves feel better. I relapsed and tried to kill myself in the shower, not wanting to see anyone at school in fear they would berate me as well. This was roughly 1.5 years ago. During those times, I have relapsed twice. Today, I am 17 years old and now a senior in high school. I have a job that I love with people who treat me for who I am on the inside. I now have better friends who treat me with the same respect and kindness I give to them. My parents now understand how my anorexia treated me in the past and have worked to better themselves for both my brother and myself. I still have some pretty bad days, but it is not anything I cannot handle. If you do read this, Mumkey, I thought it would be a nice turn to have a story with a bittersweet ending such as mine. I still have a ways to go, but I am on the right path. And there we have it. Well, if she thinks she's on the path to recovery and she feels that the story has a bittersweet ending, I don't think we need to give her any advice, but I know you guys would love to provide it anyway, so what great advice are you going to get me to read out loud, folks? Hit me up. Advice for parents in general. Take care of your fucking child. Yeah. Just eat like LMAO. Posted on Reddit. Mumkey, what is this? I came here for laughs and now I got my gallon of bleach ready. What did you think a show called The Depression Chamber was gonna be? What are you talking about? Literally just put food in your stomach and leave it there? What the fuck? I've never had anorexia or bulimia before, but there was a time that, and I talked about this in a couple of videos before, where I had so much anxiety that I physically could not eat. Even though I hadn't eaten anything, my body felt like I had just completed a huge meal and I was full, and if I tried to eat anything, it would make me nauseous. And she said that the hospital was pumping her stomach full of Ensure, which is, that's what I ended up using to solve the problem as well. It's like a little protein shake that has like half of the nutrients you would need in a given day. It's 350 calories. And drinking those was how I kept going for a while, but it's weird to even think about that now, because now I feel like I want to eat food all the time. So it's hard to even relate to myself from a year ago when I couldn't eat. I drink Boost Protein Plus. I have a few of those in my mini fridge, and sometimes I still chug them down, like on workout days and stuff. They're pretty good. They're actually really delicious, and yeah, they're really good. I'm wide, can't help, sorry. Advice, only eat saltine crackers, that's all I eat. Not a fan. Saltine crackers are not that good. Not that good. Alright, that is it for the stories today. I only prepared 4 for you. You might be thinking, oh no, Mumkey, that's not enough. We need more. Well, don't you worry. With my new Twitch schedule that I'm trying to keep, the Depression Chamber will be coming hot off the presses to you twice a week, folks. I'm thinking Mondays and Thursdays. I'll come at you with about an hour to 2 hours worth of stories twice a week. You should all be excited. If you would like to submit your own stories, of course, send those to thedepressionchamber@gmail.com. And let's see if we can stop being depressed. There we go. No more depression for the moment. No more sad music. That part of the show's over. So yeah, hey everybody, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for everybody who subscribed. I don't know how I can even check that. Subscriber history. Let's see who subbed today. I gotta say thanks. And I'll read any donations if we got any. Thank you to Womplad, Official Minion, Rejoinable, Seymour is Live, and Fix C for subbing today. And that's it. Okay, good. Don't want to read too much. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Maybe Biggs will jump on stream with us tomorrow because he's on his way to my house right now, folks. It's been fun. And I'll probably end up putting George's story up on the main channel sometime, since I think it's a story everybody should probably hear. See you later, folks.